Hey everyone, it's been so long since I've done an episode of The Rewrite. After doing the change of pace in my Jujutsu Kaisen review last week, I've been left feeling pretty refreshed. To be completely honest, as much as I enjoy making this rewrite and progressing ever closer to those huge moments we all crave, doing the rewrite constantly like that has actually been super fatiguing. But it wasn't a fatigue I noticed until I took a deliberate break over those Christmas and New Year's weeks. No word of a lie, I didn't spare a single second thinking about the rewrite in that time off. Almost as if my brain was offered a chance of stopping thinking and just leapt at it. That said, it was really fun to make my review last week, even though I put more effort than normal into the visuals. It actually stirred the creativity bug in me and made me want to do more things like that for this channel beyond rewrites. So, I might find an occasional excuse to do something different from the rewrite, both to let the rewrite breathe for a moment and to help stir up my creative juices. 3 weeks, though, since the rewrite, maybe we need to do a quick summary of what all has happened lately. Remember, as always, to like, comment, and subscribe so more and more people can see this admittedly massive rewrite. I never thought I'd end up going so long with this, but every time I read a new comment on an older video, they're always so excited for such a long series. And I love reading those comments. I've just been blessed with an incredibly kind and respectful community. I don't even have to ask it of you all. The number one thing I've always heard from other content creators is that the negative comments can really pull you down and put you in a slump, even if they're the extreme minority. But I don't even see negative comments at all. Everyone's so helpful and constructive and excited for what's to come. Truly, and I've said this before, but it can be said 1,000 times and it still wouldn't be enough. Thank you all so much for your support. In the last arc, we saw a leap of 3.5 years. It was 3.5 years from the point the first kids were taken at the Chunin exams. But this number increased to 4 years by the time Naruto, the last of the Triumphant 12, returned to the village. So there was a bit of variable play there because I like keeping a constantly flowing timeline. The majority of the arc looked at the various experience of all the Triumphant 12, named such for their incredible survival stories for their age to collectively and ultimately find their way back to the village. Some of the Triumphant 12, like Choji and Kiba, got a first-hand experience with the sage Pain, whose goals thus far are quite mysterious. Unlike in canon, the rewrite Akatsuki are still rather mysterious in their ultimate goals, but they're far more dangerous after combining their number with the 7 swordsmen of the mist. Shino, Sakura, Tenten, Ino, Rock Lee, and Naruto all ran aground of various tailed beasts or Jinchuriki across the world. Sasuke followed the combined interests of the Sound, as well as his own Uchiha clan as he found his lost cousin Akane in a compromising position. Shikamaru was the only member of his class to not disappear, and so spent his time at home going out on dangerous missions to help supplement the village's incredibly low ninja population, following the slaughter at Iwa. Still others, like Neji and Hinata, had wholly unique experiences that nearly saw them both lose everything of familial importance. Across the lands of lightning, wind, and even in lands beyond, the Triumphant 12 have grown friendships and alliances with unlikely people. Gaara of the Sand and Killer Bee of the Cloud, namely, have grown close to Ino and Sakura respectively. Naruto has found a light in his tunnel to reach for, as well as a changing relationship with Kurama. Sakura found herself on an unknown path of binding fate. Who knows whether this will be a good or bad turnout for her now mysterious goals. Upon return to the village, Naruto and Sasuke both discovered strange behavioral anomalies about Minato that led them to observing his every move. Ultimately, they pooled their thoughts and brought Ino, Sakura, Hinata, and Rock Lee in on their findings. Though there was initial confusion from Kiba, Neji, Shikamaru, Choji, Shino, and Tenten, their plans to confront Minato ultimately led to a showdown during the craziest storm in years. The triumphant 12 stood apart and fought together in a desperate clash for the good of the village. Through their resilience and persistence, the triumphant 12 uncovered the truth that Shisui Uchiha had been controlling Minato for years and hid under their very noses. It was here that they finally freed their Hokage from his mental imprisonment, and Sasuke finally learned the whole truth of his clan's massacre. With closure for many and a few mysteries and a few concerns remaining, we leap now into the opener to the final phase of my rewrite. I've always told people that if canon has part 1, which is the pre-time skip time, and part 2, that is post-time skip, then my rewrite would be a 3-parter. Part 1 was their initial missions, Chunin exams, and war with Iwa. Part 2 was their collective time skip experiences, as well as the ultimate showdown with Minato. Part 3 is now. The time skip is over. They're all older, more experienced, and more dangerous than ever before. Sakura stood at the entrance to the hospital, restless as to where she wanted to go next. Since Minato had been freed from the clutches of Shisui Uchiha, Sakura's life had returned to relative normal. With all their teachers missing, the triumphant 12 weren't assigned any missions yet. So she had been spending an hour every morning visiting Lord Jiraiya as he went through his rehabilitation to rebuild muscle strength. Today, he had been in a meeting with Lady Tsunade, and Sakura did not want to wait the unknown amount of time for their meeting to finish. Though he couldn't give her direct training, she needled him with questions about technique and the micro-actions of a more flowing range of hand seals. Technical questions that probably bored him a little, but were ever valuable for Sakura. Once she heard that Sasuke had immediately returned to training under Tsunade upon his arrival back to the village, Sakura had grown jealous and sought out training of her own. However, the only 2 people that had given her extracurricular training were currently in a meeting together. Sakura relished the opportunity to find more complex texts about genjutsu to further her growth, but Tsunade insisted that at least the leaf did not have anything else, at least anything short of a forbidden scroll. Like the others at this point, Sakura was growing restless for more missions and wondered who was looking out for their own growth. It had been a number of years, and though Sakura had been away from the village for so long, she still felt like it was time to begin pursuing that coveted Jonin rank. Surely, if the village needed to increase its numbers, it would need more Jonin to teach new Genin. And she may not have been as smart as Shikamaru, but with her little gift, she was certainly capable of greater chakra output than he was. As if he could hear her thoughts, Shikamaru passed by Sakura as she walked by the hospital. They nodded quietly to each other, but Shikamaru looked like he was on a mission himself, so Sakura chose not to hold him up. Unlike the rest of the Triumphant 12, Shikamaru had his own set of genin that he had been helping on missions. As busy as he looked at times, at least he had something to do. In her concerted thoughts, Sakura found herself wandering back to the center of the village. There were various crews set to repairing the damage done during their battle at the Kage building. Very few, if any of them, had any idea what caused the damage, as it had been explained by Lady Tsunade that lightning from the storm had done all of it. Sakura knew the villagers weren't that dumb. Lightning could account for some of the damage, but how the inner halls of the Hokage building were torn apart would certainly draw questions about what actually happened. She stopped as she came to a restaurant, and several eaters outside took notice of her.
"Please go away,"
one of them complained, sighing and rolling their eyes.
"I don't need my day ruined."
Folding her arms across her chest, Sakura leaned back and tilted her head at them judgingly. Walking up to their table, Sakura relaxed her shoulders and leaned in. "Can I grab the check for you?" she offered with a soft smile. As she approached the clerk with the payment in hand, Sakura looked around the restaurant for any faces she might have known. She knew now what she never thought she would: a glimpse of Naruto's ostracization over all these years. But if she could win back the hearts of the villagers that now hated her, maybe that would soften their views of Naruto. At least that was her hope. So each time she came across someone that had a snide comment for her, she offered them a favor. She knew that if she had the stress of missions on her shoulders, she wouldn't have had this patience and altruism for those who were ignorantly angry. But for so long as she was free, it couldn't hurt. Her eyes lit up upon seeing two men eating inside, and she invited herself to greet them. "Kakashi-sensei," Sakura grinned, "and Guy-sensei." Guy shifted uncomfortably. "You don't need to call us sensei anymore, Sakura. I heard what you were up to while Guy and I were on a mission," Kakashi said with the outline of a smile forming beneath his mask. "Good for you, Sakura." "If you're not our teachers anymore, what should I call you then?" Sakura asked playfully. "At least you can appreciate our efforts, Kakashi. There aren't very many villagers who are privy to the dealings of ninja." Kakashi nodded. "We need to always keep that in mind." "That's right. They're ordinary citizens," Sakura agreed. "I won't judge them for being ignorant." Putting her hands on the table to lean on and relax a little, Sakura felt a surge of tingles go up her arm and into her shoulder. Raising an eyebrow, she looked from where her hand touched the table to Guy's arm a few inches away. Sakura felt a sudden familiarity with him. "Something wrong, Sakura?" Kakashi asked, noting the sudden shift in her focus. "Rock Lee told us you spent a few years fighting with a tailed beast," Sakura said pointedly. "It sure is nice to be able to sleep without keeping one eye open all the time," Guy smiled. "I'll never catch up on all that lost sleep, though." "Well, I'm glad you're back home," Sakura said, reaching over and putting a hand on Guy's arm. Guy leapt from his seat just as quickly as Sakura withdrew, as a surge of chakra leapt between them. "What was that?" Guy asked, surprised. I don't know. I'm sorry." Sakura apologized quickly and fled the restaurant without another word. Her heart was beating faster than ever as an adrenaline rush filled her veins. Why did Guy have tailed beast chakra? Entering the hospital gingerly, uncomfortable, Shikamaru glanced around. He didn't want to draw too much attention to himself, but asking to see Lord Jiraiya would definitely earn some looks from someone. He would have thought that given his stance in the Hokage troubles, the village would unanimously take his side, but such was not so. There were more than a handful of villagers that wondered why he didn't bring the information to other Jonin, or why he didn't see the warning signs sooner. He was simultaneously shocked by how quickly information spread through the village, despite all who were involved swearing the events to secrecy, as well as dumbfounded how misled so many people were from misinterpreting the information. No one was immune to the scrutiny of the village at this point. Not them, not the Hokage, but, well, maybe Karin. She was the neutral third party that healed the Hokage. Shikamaru had passed Sakura on his way to the hospital, but she looked like she was a little too busy to stop to chat, so he carried on. He knew that she was probably looking for every reason to be busy, given that, other than himself, nobody was given any jobs. It was certainly true for the others. If Shino was too busy for Karin to bug him, she would hunt down Naruto and badger him. Like Sakura, though, Naruto had seemingly found a new purpose in the lazy days they were all experiencing right now. Meanwhile, he rarely saw Rock Lee these days, or Sasuke for that matter. It had only been a couple weeks since the showdown, but everything had otherwise returned to normal. Normal, of course, minus the village's splintered interest in the triumphant 12. And a real normal. Now that Lord Fourth had returned to normal, Shikamaru had really noticed the transformed personality. He still couldn't let go that he didn't catch the warning signs, and even believed that Naruto wanted to off his own father? As he grimaced at his own misguided decisions of the last 4 years, he looked up to see Lady Tsunade opening her door and Lord Jiraiya to slowly step out. Yet he waited patiently for the two Sannin to finish speaking and for Lord Jiraiya to begin walking in his direction before he considered approaching. "Lord Jiraiya, may I have a moment?" Shikamaru asked meekly. Though he had regular Jonin meetings with Lord Fourth, Shikamaru rarely interacted with the Sannin, and it was a challenge finding his voice in front of them. Yes, Shikamaru, right? Jiraiya asked, nodding for Shikamaru to follow him to his room. I had rehabilitation earlier today. I'm already too tired to keep standing. Relaxing in a large couch in the corner of the room, a couch that seemed made to exactly fit Jiraiya, he beckoned for Shikamaru to continue. Lord Jiraiya, I'm conflicted, Shikamaru began, and following the showdown with Lord Fourth, I simply cannot bother him about this. And not your father either? Jiraiya asked, though not in a dismissive way. Lord Fourth has been forced to utilize even clan heads for missions. My father hasn't been reliably present for a few weeks, Shikamaru explained, shaking his head at the village's predicament. Fair enough then. Jiraiya nodded and voicelessly motioned for Shikamaru to continue. I have nothing against my classmates, but everyone calls me a genius, and yet above everyone else, I was in the most contact with the Hokage, and I noticed nothing suspicious, Shikamaru said in a single breath. Yet, I'm the only Jonin. They were all away for years, and I'm the only one that benefited. I was the only one that was blind, who above all should not have been blind. You're feeling guilty, Jiraiya swallowed grimly. Genin and Chunin have the freedom from responsibility that Jonin will undoubtedly feel as the backbone of the village. Your guilt comes with the job, sorry to say. But Shikamaru began, but Jiraiya cleared his throat and moved on. Do you remember all those times while growing up when relatives, friends, or simply others in the village that knew you would tell your parents that you were growing up so fast? Your parents saw you every single day of your life. How much can a kid grow in a day? They're not going to notice anything. They'll recognize the passage of time, like 4 years, and think to themselves, whoa, Shikamaru has really grown up. But in the day-to-day, despite being your closest relationship in your life, they're not seeing it physically themselves. Jiraiya's grim look turned tired, but he continued anyway. That's all that's happened here. With the village so low on shinobi, Minato was working far more closely with the Jonin and Chunin, and he had a greater resistance at first, so you would have seen more of him, an aspect that slowly faded. Naruto saw his father, and then didn't see him for 4 years. Of course he'll recognize any changes, however minute. No one blames you for not noticing anything. Jeez, Shikamaru stammered, stunned by Jiraiya's swift reasoning. If you'll excuse me, I've grown quite tired, Jiraiya asked, raising a hand to the door. Why are you doing this? Karin asked, ducking under a swinging plank of wood as construction workers surrounded her hard at work. I think it's kind of refreshing, Naruto answered, rubbing the back of his head. I've been through some crazy times alone out there in the world. It's nice to just put my hands down for others. I really should do more of this. But these are professionals doing it already, Karin continued, annoyed that he wasn't willing to slack off like her. They can't use jutsu, Naruto replied, as one of his shadow clones passed through with a pail of nails. It's a wonder how handy some tricks come in. I've helped out with this sort of thing in the past, so I'm not totally clueless. Well, I wouldn't be any help, Karin insisted, pushing her glasses up and glancing about wearily. You're right, Naruto answered in agreement, and to Karin's rising anger. You could go see what Shino's doing. He's just doing paperwork. Karin rolled her eyes, bothered by the industriousness of the leaf. Besides, you're the only other Uzumaki in the village, right? We gotta stick together. Sure. Naruto nodded, focusing mostly on helping the workers around him. Wait, then why'd you leave the traveling clan? Did Shino not tell you people what happened? Karin asked, flabbergasted. Well, let's just say we got, separated. Shino told me you were a censor, though. Naruto wondered, snapping another nerve in Karin. What's with the 20 questions already? Karin growled in disbelief. Is my presence that much of a burden? Sort of, Naruto answered haphazardly. It's hard to concentrate and talk to you at the same time. Well, find the time, Karin demanded, folding her arms. Because on that cliff top, I noticed something strange about your tailed beast seal that probably needs to be addressed. When Naruto glanced back at her, an Anbu had arrived and slipped Karin a note. Naruto smirked that they were still providing messenger jobs for his father. Karin dropped the discussion and heeded the instructions on the note, leaving right away. Meanwhile, the Anbu turned to Naruto and handed him a note as well. "You're taking the Nine-Tails brat away, finally," one of the construction crew asked of the Anbu. "His name's Kurama," Naruto mumbled loudly enough for the man to hear as he unfolded the note to see its contents. Crumpling the note and shoving it into his pocket, Naruto grimaced as he thought about the intentions of the note. Landing amidst the company of the Triumphant 12, Karin wondered why she had been gathered together along with them. Well, there were a couple people missing, but she didn't know them all well enough to figure out who those were. As they shuffled into the room they were asked to convene at, Karin saw the legendary Sannin Tsunade sitting on the desk at the center of the room. Goosebumps ran along her arms as Karin found herself bedazzled by the Sannin in the flesh. Lady Tsunade was known across the world, not just for her feats that earned her the title like legendary Sannin, but also for her profound medical skills. Little girls, even in opposing nations, looked up in awe at her majesty. Meanwhile, though, the Triumphant 12 filed into the room and seemed unperturbed by her presence. The nerve of these people. "That's everyone then," Tsunade nodded, counting them all, despite the missing some. "Excuse this little speech, but Lord Forth insists that it's very important to impart these words." Shino looked at Karin and then to Choji and Kiba beside him. Everyone seemed confused and somewhat concerned with what was to come. Normally, the life of a shinobi in the village hidden in the leaves constitutes graduation from the academy to the rank of genin, followed by a year of training and, in the most successful of cases, a winning chunin exams where the team gets promoted. But even after that point, the ninja will generally remain with their teacher until they themselves attain jonin. Well, you lot haven't been so lucky. Tsunade told them with pursed lips. You are simultaneously the luckiest survivors of circumstance and the unluckiest of shinobi ever turned out by this village. But all of these detours presented to each of you have built exemplary shinobi out of your experiences. Already, you have had 2 different combinations of team setups. Due to outside forces, we must again realign your number. New teams will be assigned now, and hopefully this time it'll stick. Hopefully this time you'll remain together until the ends of your respective journeys to Jonin. Ino frowned. The last time they had team assignments, their corresponding teachers were in the room. She had wondered for some time what had kept Kakashi and Might Guy busy all this time as well. Isobu grumbled within, sensing her unease, but did not speak. Tenten, please step forward, Tsunade instructed, standing and inviting Tenten out of the crowd. At the Chunin exams, you achieved the desired promotion. After you were vanished from everyone's lives, you not only found your way back, but took a detour into the land of water to help the Cloud Ninja end the war once and for all. None but you and them know how instrumental you truly were in the conflict's end, but several of the participants in the war's finale named you with jubilation, most notably Omoi, who even trusted you enough to trade swords with, and of course Darui, the Raikage's number 2. I don't even know what to say, Tenten crashed out, glowing red at the compliments from Tsunade. I was just doing my job as a leaf kunoichi. Exactly right, Tsunade smiled. And because of these reasons, the Hokage has selected you to be a new team leader. What? The remaining crowd of the Triumphant 12 murmured in surprise. The Cloud do not hand out compliments easily. Their whole culture is based on constantly getting better. And if you can constantly get better, and you're constantly improving, you don't want to hear good job, because the job is never done, Lady Tsunade explained. That's why we know we can trust their word. Be proud, Tenten. You have earned the respect of some of the hardest ninja in the world. Blinking back tears of a sudden exploding pride, Tenten nodded and took a deep breath. Thank you, milady. Triumphant 12, Tsunade called to the remainder. Please step forward, Neji and Hinata Hyuga. The two foremost children of the Hyuga clan stepped out from the pack, glancing at each other for a moment. Tenten is your team leader. No more Uchiha to rile you up. I trust you'll behave and follow the words of Tenten in your new team? Tsunade asked, clearly of Neji and not Hinata. Yes, Lady Tsunade. Neji nodded, staring hard at Tenten with his all-seeing eye. If the cloud recognized her, I have no reason not to. Thank you as well for assigning Lady Hinata to my team. With Neji's new Byakugan and his host of technical abilities, he will be your team's powerhouse, but careful that he does not try to shoulder the whole load himself, Tsunade cautioned to Tenten. Meanwhile, Lady Hinata apparently put up a fantastic fight in your now vastly rumored showdown. Shikamaru, please step forward, Tsunade waved next. As the only Jonin of the group, it's only natural that you'd be the leader of your own team. While the rest of you were surviving the world at large, Shikamaru was using every moment he could here at home to prove himself, and prove himself he did. Having just had his conversation with Lord Jiraiya that morning, Shikamaru found a little bit more energy in his footfalls as he approached Lady Tsunade. Ino, Choji, please step forward, Tsunade invited to Ino's relief. You two were always trained to be guardians for Ino, and it was a mistake to separate you three fresh from academy. Lord Forth sought to provide Ino with some agency so that she may gain some personal confidence. Well, she has that now, so there's no harm in you three reuniting. I've heard it's no mystery among you, so if there's any resentment at these picks, Shikamaru and Choji have been trained since childhood to help restrain Ino should her tailed beast ever break free and go wild. Isobu. Ino smiled as she stood between Choji and Shikamaru. Oh, and, my mistake. Tsunade paused, second checking her notes. Kiba, as well. Kiba pointed at himself dumbly as Rock Lee pushed him out of the remaining pack with a snicker. Kiba's kind of a beast, and since your group was designed to keep the ultimate beast controlled, Kiba should be easy to handle. Tsunade teased, ruffling Kiba's hair as he approached her. Shikamaru, since you're the only Jonin in the group, you will be getting a full squad of Genin.
Hey, wait a second,
Kiba interrupted.
We're still Genin even after all of that?
We don't hand out promotions just because. Tsunade shrugged and raised an eyebrow at his challenge. And, of course, the remainder of you is the final team. With Karin joining the village, like all Uzumaki her age that joined the village, she's been granted an automatic Genin level. Though her training was of a different kind than the rest of yours, her skills will be unimaginably helpful. Shino, you are the leader as the only Chunin of the group, and Rock Lee is your muscle. Where are Sakura and the others? Ino asked from her new team group. You'll be seeing them again, but since they're all Chunin, they will have a different task set for them at the moment, Tsunade explained. And that leaves us with the very important question, what else do you need to do before you're made Chunin? Neji, Hinata, Ino, Choji, Kiba, and Rock Lee all deserve a chance at a promotion, right?
Yeah!
Kiba fist-pumped. I knew you had something planned! But not me, huh? Karin asked pointedly. You've literally just now joined our ranks, Tsunade shook her head. The Hokage will need some time to deliberate your competency. For the rest of you, though, you've lucked out. For the first time in 4 years, after the longest hiatus in the village's history, Lord Forth is starting up the Chunin exams once more. Holy crap, Choji said a little bit too loud. There's going to be so much competition. During war times, ninja are promoted on the field instead, Karin told him dismissively. I'd have hoped you sophisticated villagers would have known at least that much. Karin's right, Tsunade nodded. Unfortunately, you were all far afield during our war times, and we were unable to see you prove yourselves. You will now have a chance in an official capacity, and luckily there are 6 of you left who are yet to be made Chunin. We'll split you into 2 groups, and you'll do the Chunin exams again. You have an obscene advantage over the competition, so Lord Forth has some other plans to specifically trip you up. You have 2 weeks to prepare yourselves. The teams will be Ino, Choji, and Kiba together, and then Neji, Hinata, and Rock Lee together. Understood? Understood! The remaining genin cheered at their second chance. Naruto had only visited Lord Jiraiya once on his own since he woke up again. He knew he should have visited more often and felt guilty about it, but everything felt like it was just going in fast forward since the showdown with his father. And now that Jiraiya had summoned him, he found hesitation outside the door. Naruto was trying to turn over a new leaf and build himself into something better than he used to be, but this was like a blizzard that he dreaded bursting. The first step in bettering his relationship with Kurama was to stop being so negative all the time. And staying on this side of the door and fearing the coming interactions was keeping Naruto on the dark side. A sudden arm around the small of his back shocked him back to coherence as he looked over at Sakura greeting him.
Just waiting for us to arrive?
She asked pleasantly with Sasuke behind. If I knew you'd been summoned as well, I would have seen if I could beat you here. Sasuke smirked, challenging the flying Raijin. Without waiting for Naruto to even respond, they naturally walked past him and into the room ahead of him, knocking quickly before letting themselves in. With others to dilute Jiraiya's focus, Naruto swallowed and entered behind them. Jiraiya sat on the side of his hospital bed, his legs crossed as he held a notebook close to his face and scribbled notes into it. Before him were 3 chairs, clearly assembled for this rather unprofessional meeting. Messages travel quick these days, Jiraiya chuckled, checking the clock in shock.
Lord Jiraiya, how are you today? I missed you this morning,
Sakura said, glowing and giddy to hear his instruction. It's a busy day for us all, Jiraiya confirmed, motioning them to sit. What's this about? Sasuke asked. The note said nothing. Good. It would have eliminated the point of meeting with me. Jiraiya smiled softly, and the wear of the day clearly showed on his face. Naruto grimaced. He didn't like seeing Jiraiya in such a state. From legendary signing to this? He was a shadow of his former self, and Naruto feared whether he would ever return to how he was before. There's been a shift in priorities since you lot helped Minato regain control of his mind. Jiraiya began with a sigh. We are more eager than ever to rebuild our ranks and return to being the strongest nation, because that's certainly not true at the moment. Who's the strongest? Sasuke asked curiously. I would say that this strength is firmly with the Cloud at the moment, Jiraiya answered, noting, this might be a first for them. The Land of Fire has always been at the head of the military might.
What can we do to rebuild?
Sakura asked, prodding Jiraiya to continue. We have a great many Genin and Chunin in the village at the moment, but stark few Jonin and even fewer Anbu. Jiraiya continued, nodding thanks to Sakura for keeping him on track. Jonin are not only leaders of their own teams, but they're also the only possible picks to be in the Anbu. They're also the most trusted for solo missions. It would take great desperation for the village to send Chunin on a solo mission, and Genin would never ever be considered. Oh, are we being made Anbu? Naruto guessed, his shock at the possible suggestion blasting him out of his funk. Of course not. Jiraiya shook his head, his lips curling more seriously. But we don't have years to see everyone slowly prove themselves either. What are you saying? Sasuke asked, straightening in his seat at what he knew was coming. Minato has deemed you 3 fit for the status of Jonin, Jiraiya unveiled, but raised a palm to them quickly before they could celebrate. If you can accomplish a single task each. No one doubts your combat skills, however, there is some concern about whether you got lucky in figuring out Shisui's master plan. That could have easily just been right time, right place. Right time, right place? Naruto repeated with vitriol, offended by the suggestion. Nobody really knows. Jiraiya shrugged, his hands raised, but these last tasks will help us determine that.
So what are they, Master?
Sakura asked beseechingly. They number 3, 1 for each of you, Jiraiya explained. Scratching his head with concern for the great wilds of the Land of Fire, Naruto looked north at the endlessly stretching rolling hills before him. Their gentle curves were blanketed in lush, emerald-green grass that rippled like waves under the soft caress of the breeze. Here and there, patches of farmland added a quilt-like variety, their neat rows of crops and golden fields of grain a testament to the care of unseen hands. In the vast distance, Naruto could see a tiny village nestled cozily amidst the hills, its clustered rooftops and faint wisps of chimney smoke blending harmoniously with the landscape. Overhead, the bright sun bathed everything in its golden light, while the warmth of the day infused the scene with a tranquil serenity. It was a picture of peace, as if the world itself had paused to bask in the perfection of the moment. Turning away from the idyllic scene, the horizon heading south told a starkly different tale. Darkening clouds gathered with an ominous intensity, their swollen forms rolling and churning as they consumed the blue sky. The smear of rain in the distance blurred the landscape, a ghostly curtain veiling whatever lay beyond. The wind, gentle where Naruto stood, clearly carried a sharper edge further out, howling danger between the trees. It was as if nature itself was preparing for a confrontation, the peaceful calm giving way to a looming storm. Would this be a harbinger of ill fate, or a sign of trials yet to come? Or perhaps a challenge, a call to rise and endure what lay ahead? The answer remained hidden in the shadow of the advancing tempest, as the first cool droplets kissed the earth in forewarning. "First for you, Naruto," Jiraiya had said. "You are being dispatched on a solo mission. On this mission, you have one very clear goal. You've obviously proven yourself very combat capable. Now it's time for diplomacy, for charisma, for that charm you doubtlessly inherited from your father. You are to find Asuma Sarutobi and convince him to return home. You may use any jutsu you need to do in your search, but absolutely no violence allowed outside of hunting for food, and you must return uninjured. Due to being solo, this is an S-rank mission." "How do you people see in these things?" Sasuke asked, adjusting his mask. "It destroys my peripheral vision." "Just see it as a challenge to overcome," Might Guy encouraged, flashing a pose of excitement for their mission. "It takes some getting used to," Kakashi agreed, ignoring Guy's boundless optimism. "But it is never to come off for the mission." Yeah, Sasuke grumbled, leaping atop a nearby tree as they had just crossed a wide river. The air was thick with electric tension that comes just before the heavens unleash their fury. The once gentle breeze had grown wild and feral, whipping through the landscape with a blood-curdling howl of ferocity. Overhead, the sun was nowhere to be seen, swallowed whole by a blanket of dark, seething clouds that churned like a pot about to boil over. The light had turned eerier, a strange, muted gray that made the world feel suspended in an unnatural twilight. Trees bent and twisted in protest against the violent winds, their branches snapping like brittle bones and leaves torn free to spiral chaotically through the air. Bracing himself on his tree, Sasuke absorbed the violently attacking wind. The earth beneath seemed to hold its breath, yet the ominous roar of the storm to be filled the silence with dread. Every gust of wind felt like a warning, a reminder of nature's unrelenting power. To stand there was to feel small and vulnerable. "And for you, Sasuke," Jiraiya had continued, "you are to go disguised as an Anbu with some of our very own into the Land of Rain. Minato's cousins Raido, Genma, and Iwashi were sent there as a last-ditch effort by Minato to keep them out of Shisui's path of destruction. Unfortunately, they should have returned within days, and it's now been weeks. While the worst is feared, we must still do our due diligence and scout out whether they can be saved. Just as with Naruto's mission, you are not to use an ounce of violence. Get in, find out what you can, and get out without detection. This, too, is an S-rank mission." "Won't she just slow us down?" Kabuto asked, somewhat dismissive of Sakura. "Relax, we're not in a rush," Shizune shot back, glancing at Sakura as they all donned their gear. "We need to be as rested as we can before we start the mission proper regardless," Tsunade explained, the only one of the four to not wear any additional equipment. She looked just as she always did, with strength and confidence emanating from her every pore. "I'm kind of worried you'll slow us down," Sakura answered, looking Kabuto up and down unimpressed.
Wow, I like you.
Shizune laughed, giving Sakura a high five, followed by a victorious glance at a nonplussed Kabuto. We are in a rush, Kabuto said, unamused. It was in the mission notes. Regardless, Tsunade repeated with annoyance, if the two of you don't quit bickering, I'll just have to find another set of squad mates. Strapping her toolkit to her leg, Sakura closed her eyes and silently counted back all the gear she had put inside just to make sure she wasn't forgetting anything. She looked at her hand that had touched my guy and wondered even still what that electric feeling exactly was when she had touched him. It was similar to when she had touched Killer Bee, but obviously Guy was no Jinchuriki. She had somehow gained the sliver of another tailed beast, but she would pocket these concerns for another time. Finally, Sakura, Jiraiya turned to her at last. You are to set out with Lady Tsunade and her two protégés in a mission of reconnaissance to the Land of Sound. Word travels fast that Orochimaru has risen anew, with a much more sinister ambition than he has ever had before. You are traveling with Hasanin because we hope Orochimaru seeing one of us will have significant emotional impact, enough at least to buy time for a retreat, should you be found out. You specifically are not to engage with violence for any reason. We know you can fight, but we need to know if you've rounded out your skill set well. This too is an S-rank mission. And that's the end of today's episode. I took a slightly different format today to keep things feeling fresh, and we now know everyone's short-term destinations, as we prepare ourselves for the exciting ventures to come, both by our three main characters as they attempt to earn a fast track into the Jonin ranks, and also by the remaining triumphant 12 that are going to engage in the Chunin exams. But we've also set ourselves up for some real fun as well, as some exposure to some major players of this rewrite's plot. I know that there was a point in the Naruto filler that explained that Guy wasn't cut out to be Yonbu, but I just disagree. He's a goof and super optimistic, but it is his general fearlessness that really sets him apart for me. In canon, he doesn't seem to hesitate ever, and especially when he's entering the final gate. There's no end. Someone with discipline or resolution is definitely capable of sticking it out with Yonbu, but that's just my opinion. Not to mention the village's restructuring. The Hokage wants to retire. It hasn't happened yet because, let's face it, the village has had Minato for 16 years in my rewrite. They wouldn't just let him move on so easily. The Chunin exams this time will be a fun return to safe action as we see the remaining triumphant 12 find out whether they truly stand apart from the other Genin. And these individual missions of Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura are sure to drum up some drama in all three lanes. Does Asuma even want to talk to anyone? Are Iwashi, Genma, and Raido safe? Imprisoned, tortured, or worse? What has evil Orochimaru been up to in all this time that he's been biding? All that and more in the coming episodes. I do a riddle, but next episode is already predetermined to be one of 4 storylines, so I'll leave everyone in suspense with who I cover first, and see you all in the next episode. The sky's the limit.